Welcome back to Energy Discussions. And this time we're talking about earning your runtime. Basically, movies are too long these days, and a lot of those long movies do not earn being that long. Would you agree with this statement?
On some level, yes. More recently, I've seen a lot of movies that do earn their runtime, but, you should always just earn your runtime anyway, and being shorter is a good way to do that. So I won't disagree.
Okay, well, let's start with that. Let's start with a couple examples of movies that are long and earn their runtime. And just to clarify, for me, a long movie is anything over like 2.5 hours or longer. That's a long movie to me. Yeah, a lot of people would say movies over 2 hours are long movies, but I give a little bit of wiggle room, mostly because movies like Harry Potter and Star Wars average 2:20, and you do not feel it. Those are the examples of movies that do it well.
Well, those are movies that earn their runtime.
Earning their runtime, but specifically we're looking at 2:30 and over. So movies like The Last Jedi, which is a Star Wars movie, do not. Or
is The Last Jedi, that's a different video. I won't even mention that.
I guess the Fantastic Beasts movie, I don't know if any of those get too high, but those are kind of long. You don't feel them as much, but anyway, so most recent example, I think what you're talking about is Oppenheimer.
That is one of them, though that one could also have used a couple more edits.
Yes. Typically, there's always movies like that and The Batman that came out last year, just about 3 hours long. I think are they're really good movies, but that doesn't mean that they need to be that long, right?
Right.
You could have had the same effect, or it could have been even better if it was just 10, 20 minutes shorter. But for the most part, those movies utilize that 3 hours well.
Yep.
And they can kind of use this to segue into directors, but Scorsese is a director that often does longer films with, I would say the average of his is like maybe 2:45 or something. But one of my favorite 3-hour movies is The Wolf of Wall Street that he did. Exactly 3 hours, which is a character study more or less. Covers a large period of time, but you do not feel the 3 hours. You're sitting there the entire time, and every single second has got you, and you're watching it and you want to know what happens next. It's interesting through and through, and that is probably the best example of a 3-hour movie that I've seen. And then I think back to Nolan, you have movies that he's done that are very long, like Dark Knight Rises. He did Oppenheimer.
I think Nolan has a slight runtime problem. It's definitely not as bad as somebody like Spielberg, but
yeah, it's and then Spielberg, he feels the need to hit an average of 2:30 is what he hits, and it's just unnecessary because it's a lot of the time his movies are actually good and they look good, and they most recently, what was it? Fabelmans?
Yep.
We were talking about that one before any of us had seen it. It's of course, another Spielberg movie is 3.5 hours. I actually thought it was pretty good. Does it earn every second? Probably not. It probably could have been 15 minutes shorter or whatever. But I still thought it was good. And that's the problem with my problem with Spielberg movies is just I have a hard time kind of, I guess, crucifying him for his runtime, because a lot of the time they are good movies, but at the same time, I don't think it justifies him just making them as long as he wants, right?
Right.
And I think this comes down to a lack of editing and directors having more say in editing than they used to. And, they just refuse to take things out that really don't have to be there. So
you kind of notice this a lot, that there tend to be some longer takes in movies that are just unnecessary, or even in shows like, Ahsoka. First episode of Ahsoka, there was those really long takes at the beginning.
Yeah, right. Like,
it did not earn its runtime right there.
Yeah, that's like in the first two episodes. There's like a couple extended scenes where they're just like, okay, this could have done with a couple cuts. This is like a 15-second thing, but no, it gets dragged out to like a minute, 2 minutes. And then you have episode 3, which is the exact opposite problem, where it's one thing for a 30-minute episode. It's just too short. Not enough got done, right?
Right.
So it's like, maybe that's an editing thing, a writing thing. You should have balanced that better. But yeah, and then talking about some couple trilogies that I think don't earn their runtime. Both of these are extreme hot takes, so please bear with us. The Godfather trilogy and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I think both of which, their movies are like 3 hours a piece. And there's just no way. Those stories, you don't want to sit there for 9 hours and get those stories. It's like, no.
Those are stories that could be told, but they should be told with less, dragged out.
You didn't need all that. And I know a lot of people, the whole thing with Lord of the Rings is the world. They want to sit in that world for as long as they possibly can. And that's cool, but it's like, at the same time, you're making a movie here. So you kind of need to have it flow well. You can't just have it look nice.
We're going to be crucified for our takes on Lord of the Rings when those get out.
Sure, whatever. Also recently, the John Wick films. I don't remember how long the first 3 were, but they weren't 3 hours. The third one was long. Or fourth one was really long. It was almost 3 hours. It was like 250. And it's just
unnecessary.
It was too long, yeah. And honestly, that movie didn't do a whole lot that the other ones didn't either. So it's like the coolest part for me is like some of the fight scenes, and then like the end stairs scene was really cool and unique. But it's like the whole beginning part, where at the Japanese hotel. I was hoping they would utilize, new weapons, new locations, and it looks nice, but it didn't look new, right? It was like,
right.
It's like, I saw this before. This isn't brand new. Like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. This needs to be this long because it's all new. It's all exciting. That wasn't the case. And I think that's the biggest point with movies that are this long, is you have to have a reason for it being that long. Why are you taking 3 hours for this?
Yep.
Yeah, so do you have a point or like a example?
One of the movies I was going to bring up is Across the Spider-Verse, which I don't know if that's 2.5 hours long. It's pretty long comparative to just a lot of other animated movies. And I think that movie earns its runtime pretty well because basically everything in that movie is constantly flowing. It's constantly working towards the next part of the story. And nothing in it feels like, you could just skip over it. That's a movie I would use as a good example of earning your runtime, because even though it's a longer movie, it feels like it's a lot shorter than it is.
That is the newest one, Across the Spider-Verse?
Yes.
That is 220. And
really?
Yeah, so that is long in terms of animated, but I would agree, I didn't feel like, how much longer do we have? It was like, it had your attention the entire time.
Exactly.
And it's even disappointing because it ends on a cliffhanger, and it's like, you want to see what's next.
It is very rare for a movie to be like, wait, I want more.
Yeah. It's like most of the time with these longer movies over 2 hours, it's like, finally it's over. But, which is, that's part of the problem, is you can't keep people watching your movie for 3 hours. It's like, I don't know. Well, I think I mentioned this point before, but it's like, if I asked you if you wanted to watch a movie in your head, how long do you think that is going to take?
2 to 2.5 hours, depending on how long the movie is.
True, but like saying it instinctively, it's just like, you're not expecting.
Well, that's also including stuff like, getting snacks or setting up the movie.
Yeah, but like basically it's like a 2-hour or whatever thing is what you're setting aside time in your mind just by hearing the words, let's watch a movie. But it's like, and then I pull out Lord of the Rings, you're like, oh.
I should have cleared my schedule first.
Yeah, but, so, another director is James Cameron, which I think is now infamous for his, runtime in the Avatar movies. And his also lack of, he's the only one I've seen be vocal about this. Maybe someone else has. I just haven't paid attention to him. But he doesn't seem to actually respect the viewer's time. Because
that is a great way to put it.
Yeah, because he actually had an interview where someone was asking him why his most recent film, The Way of Water, was so long. And he basically said, I don't want to hear anyone complaining. People sit there and they binge TV shows on Netflix for hours and hours. And if they can do that, then they can sit through this movie. And I think that misses every single point to the...
It's just rude as well.
It's rude, and it's like... Yeah, I don't know. It's like anyone could use that logic, right? It's like, oh, you did this, so you could do this too. It's like, well, if I did everything everyone wanted me to because I did that one thing that one time, it's like I would have no time left or no money left or anything.
It's the old saying, if everybody was jumping off a bridge, would you do that too?
Yeah, he wants you to jump off his bridge because it's James Cameron. But the points that misses is like TV shows are episodic. You can stop after one. It's not 3 hours you got to sit through to get the whole story because there are breaks in TV shows. Also, in a theater, you cannot pause the movie if you need to use the bathroom, which is most likely if you are, watching something for 3 hours straight. And it's just also, like I said, it's just not the same. I don't know what point he was trying to make. And it's like, well, what happens when his whole series is out, right? He's got his anthology of Avatar movies. Does he expect people to sit there and watch them all in one go because that's what he said?
Yes.
It's like you're following your own logic. But it's people like that I think are the worst for movies when it comes to respecting the audience, the viewer, and that's not just about runtime. There's other things like writing and all that. You write dumb characters, dumb plots. You're not respecting your audience because you just think they're dumb, and you have to dumb it down for them. There's a bunch of examples like that, but specifically runtime. Another franchise is the James Bond movies.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure all of them, their average is about 220 also. And I think for a majority of them, especially the early ones, you really feel that runtime. And they've benefited from at least 15 minutes shaved off.
I think it really depends on the Bond movie.
I think 1 hour and 50 minutes is the sweet spot for a Bond movie. I think that would make for excellent film.
I think 2 hours exact is probably closer to what you're looking for, but
you also got to think of it now in terms, I know you can't go back and change them, but like if someone wanted to watch all the Bond movies, it's like really, intimidating that they're all so long, right?
Right.
And if you change the average of them from 220 to 150, it would like kind of be more accessible, I think. So I think that would go for anything. It's kind of the same thing with Marvel movies. Those have gotten kind of long too now.
Well, they've always been somewhat long, but now they're just kind of ridiculous.
You feel it more because whether it's the writing or the characters just aren't what they used to be. But there's other examples because like didn't they have Eternals was like almost 3 hours? I thought there was another one.
No, I thought Eternals is over 3 hours. Captain Marvel as well.
That's horrible. I hate that. But yeah, let's see. I guess a little like side example would be the Snyder Cut of Justice League, where this wasn't a theatrical release. This was demanded for by fans. So it's like I would say it has an excuse to be as long as it is because it's literally what people asked for. Does that mean I like it and I want it to be that long? No, I think it's too long. I think it adds it's way too much, right? It's like, the plate people have the first one was didn't have enough. And so their answer to that was, let's add everything, every single piece of everything. You will be missing nothing. It's like, okay, now it's a little...
Yeah, they overcompensated.
So, yeah. But, yeah, and then, like, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. And the end game was 3 hours. That's a Marvel one, but that's a finale. How they utilized it, whether or not that's...
That Endgame, again, does not earn its runtime. We'll have to make this a separate video.
Yeah,
but
what they didn't earn their runtime. However, I think on paper, the idea of a MCU finale being 3 hours, I think that's acceptable. I think that's actually expected, right?
Again, though, the idea of the Snyder Cut being 4 hours is also potentially acceptable depending on what they add. They just didn't add the right things.
Yeah. So it's basically comes down to earning your runtime, and that means having a good plot, good characters, good editing. It has to flow well. Don't drag on stuff for an extreme amount of time just because you can. And I don't know if people like James Cameron, I know they make a ridiculous amount of money now, and you can't really do anything. But if people like James Cameron are like, new directors and they're like super inspired by him and they're following his footsteps, and their first feature film is going to be 3 hours long and it doesn't
I'm afraid.
Don't give them editing power. Just don't. That's what the editor is for. They get to direct the movie, but it's like, get the editor in there and to make the final decisions. Is this necessary for the story? Do we need to watch this person walk all the way around their house, or can we just have a few scenes, shave it from 1 minute to 10 seconds, right?
That's honestly one of my favorite tropes, is just where they have this super long take for no reason.
Yeah. I think it was funny. I don't know if you remember in John Wick 4, they had that scene. There was one scene, I think it was Winston was walking in this building, and it showed him walk from left to right the entire building in one take, and I couldn't help but think that was done on purpose as a joke.
Yeah.
But when it's not a joke, it's not good. So.
And John Wick isn't exactly where you'd expect them to make a runtime joke, right?
Right. But especially when their own movie is about 3 hours. It's like you can't. I guess they're being self-aware, but at the same time, I don't know. But I guess the other part is, like I said before, Harry Potter utilizes their runtime really well. So does Star Wars. It's like, if your movie's going to be over 2 hours, make use of that time. You don't feel it. You're just, every second you're watching and you're excited and you want to see more. So... And that's really important for series like that. Like, I know sometimes one-off movies, 3 hours, if they earn it, that's fine. If they don't, that's tough. But, if every Marvel movie, every James Bond movie, every Harry Potter movie is going to be over 2 hours, and you have multiple of them, why would the audience want to come back to the next one if the first one took so long and nothing got done, right?
Right.
So, I don't know. Anything else to add here?
Leave the editing to the editors, whose people's job it is to edit movies.
Yeah.
Just because you directed the movie and maybe there's a scene you really like, You got to make sacrifices, and the deleted scenes page exists for a reason. Just release Blu-ray.
You can take stuff out, right? It's not like, no, I shot it, got to use it.
Like the original Revenge of the Sith was like 4 hours, but they cut it down.
I know, and it's like, and that was the guy who wants to put everything everywhere. He has everything.
Yeah.
And he managed to cut it down. The finale to his trilogy, I think, is like 220.
Finale to his saga, not just his trilogy.
Yeah. And it's actually shorter. That movie's shorter than Attack of the Clones. I'm like 99% sure.
No, Attack of the Clones is the longest one, yeah.
Exactly. So it's like, hello, you can do that just because it's a finale. Like another example to look at there is the Dark Knight trilogy. I'm pretty sure the third one is the longest one because it's the finale. It didn't need to be that long. I like it. I think it's good. But again, just because I like it and it's good doesn't mean it earns every second of its runtime. So